Marcus Chen had always been the joker of the deep space mining station, Omega-7, even when the alien first contact protocols were activated, and the entire crew was scrambling to prepare for humanity's first official meeting with extraterrestrial intelligence. Marcus was cracking jokes to ease the tension. The Zephyrian delegation arrived in a ship that looked like a crystalline flower made of starlight. Their technology was so advanced that it made humanity's best achievements look like stone tools. The crew of Omega-7 watched through the viewing ports as the elegant vessel docked with their grimy industrial station. When the airlock cycled open, 3 beings emerged. They were humanoid but distinctly alien, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer like water under moonlight. They stood about 4 feet tall with large eyes that held an ancient wisdom. Their leader introduced herself as Ambassador Zira through a translation device that somehow converted her musical language into perfect English. The meeting was formal and diplomatic. Captain Rodriguez handled the introalities with practiced professionalism, discussing trade agreements and peaceful relations. The Zephyrians were interested in humanity's mining techniques, particularly how humans could work in such harsh conditions that would kill most other species they'd encountered. Marcus was part of the technical crew assigned to demonstrate their mining operations. As they toured the facility, he noticed that Ambassador Zira seemed fascinated by everything, especially by how the human workers laughed and joked even while doing dangerous, backbreaking labor. "Your species finds humor in adversity," she observed, her voice like wind chimes in her translated speech. "This is unusual among the civilizations we have encountered." "Well, what else are you gonna do?" Marcus replied with a grin. "Cry about it? Life's tough enough without taking it too seriously." During the technical demonstration, Marcus showed her how they used controlled explosions to break apart asteroids. When a particularly large chunk broke away and nearly hit him, he dodged with practiced ease and called out, "Hey, at least buy me dinner first." The translator seemed to struggle with that one, making several beeping sounds before Zira tilted her head curiously. "Buy you dinner? I do not understand the context." "It's a joke," Marcus explained, realizing she was genuinely confused. "When something comes at you that hard, humans joke that it should at least take you on a date first. You know, romance you a little before trying to crush you." Zira's large eyes blinked slowly, and something that might have been amusement flickered across her features. "Your species uses mating rituals as humor in dangerous situations?" "Pretty much," Marcus laughed. "We joke about everything. Death, taxes, bad coffee, alien invasions, marriage proposals from space rocks." As the tour continued, Marcus found himself naturally gravitating toward Zira. She was curious about everything, asking questions that showed a sharp intelligence behind those ancient eyes. She wanted to know why humans sang while they worked, why they gave their tools nicknames, why they decorated their workspaces with pictures of people from home. "You carry emotional attachments into dangerous environments," she noted. "Most species compartmentalize such feelings for efficiency. Maybe that's why we're good at this job," Marcus suggested. "We're not trying to be efficient machines. We're humans doing human work in a human way." When they reached the recreational area, Marcus showed her the small hydroponics garden that the crew maintained. It wasn't practical or necessary, just tomatoes and herbs that reminded them of Earth. "These plants serve no functional purpose for mining operations," Zira observed. "They serve a functional purpose for us," Marcus replied, picking a cherry tomato and offering it to her. "Want to try it? Fair warning, though. Eating our food might count as a marriage proposal on some planets." The translator made more confused beeping sounds. Zira looked at the small red fruit with something approaching scientific curiosity. "Marriage proposal?" "It's a joke," Marcus said quickly, realizing his casual comment might be causing a diplomatic incident. "I was just kidding around. Humans joke about marriage all the time. We joke about marrying people, places, objects, ideas, alien." He gestured helplessly. "We'd probably joke about marrying the vacuum of space if it brought us coffee in the morning." But Zira was studying him with those large, thoughtful eyes. "You would joke about forming a permanent bond with someone you barely know?" "Well, yeah, but it's just a joke. We don't mean it literally." Marcus felt increasingly awkward under her gaze. "I mean, I might joke about marrying you because you're smart and interesting and you haven't tried to kill me yet, which honestly puts you ahead of my last 3 dates. But it's just humor. Humans use exaggeration for comedic effect. The translation device went silent for a long moment. When it finally spoke, Zira's response was quiet and thoughtful. "You would consider me suitable for pair bonding?" Marcus realized he had stumbled into completely uncharted territory. Well, hypothetically speaking, if you were human and I was in the market for a relationship, sure. You're intelligent, curious, patient enough to listen to my terrible jokes. Plus, you're probably the most exotic date I'd ever have." "Exotic," Zira repeated, seeming to test the word. "Unique. Special. Different in a good way," Marcus clarified, hoping he wasn't making things worse. The rest of the tour passed in relative silence, with Zira seeming more contemplative than before. When the delegation prepared to leave, she approached Marcus privately. "Your joke about marriage," she said carefully. "On my world, humor about pair bonding is considered a declaration of serious intent." Marcus felt his blood turn to ice water. Oh no. "I didn't mean. I was just joking around. I didn't know." "I understand," Zira said, and there was something unreadable in her expression. "Humans use deception for entertainment purposes." "Not deception exactly," Marcus said desperately. "More like playing with ideas we're not ready to act on. Testing possibilities without commitment." Zira nodded slowly. "I see. Thank you for the clarification, Marcus Chen. Perhaps we will meet again someday." As her ship departed, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that he had somehow changed the course of his entire life. With a few careless jokes, Captain Rodriguez clapped him on the shoulder. "Hell of a first contact, Chen. Think they'll be back?" Marcus watched the crystalline ship disappear into the starfield. "I really hope not." But deep down, in a part of himself he didn't want to examine too closely, he found himself hoping for exactly the opposite. 3 years passed without any word from the Zephyrian Confederation. Marcus tried to put the incident behind him, but his crewmates never let him forget about his alien girlfriend. Every time something went wrong on the station, someone would joke that maybe he should have married Zira after all, since she probably had better insurance. Life on Omega-7 continued its predictable rhythm of danger and tedium. They mined asteroids, processed rare metals, and tried not to think too hard about how far they were from Earth. Marcus threw himself into his work, taking on extra shifts and volunteering for the most dangerous assignments. Physical exhaustion helped quiet the strange dreams he'd started having about shimmering blue skin and ancient eyes. Then the message came. Captain Rodriguez called all senior staff to the communications center, his face grim. The holographic display showed an official seal from Earth Central Command, overlaid with priority codes that Marcus had never seen before. "We've just received word that a Zephyrian diplomatic vessel is en route to our sector," Rodriguez announced. "ETA is 6 days. They've specifically requested to dock with Omega-7, and they've asked for Marcus Chen by name." The room fell silent except for the hum of life support systems. Marcus felt every eye turned toward him, and his stomach dropped somewhere around his boots. "They asked for me? Specifically?" "Specifically," Rodriguez confirmed. The message was brief, but it mentioned concluding unfinished business regarding cultural exchange and mutual understanding. "Any idea what that might mean, Chen?" Marcus had several ideas, none of them good. Probably just want to follow up on the mining demonstration. You know how thorough they are. But even as he said it, he knew he was lying. The look in Zira's eyes when she left had been too intense, too purposeful. He had the sinking feeling that his casual jokes about marriage had set something in motion that he didn't understand. The next 6 days were the longest of Marcus's life. He threw himself into preparations for the visit, checking and rechecking every system on the station. His crewmates alternated between teasing him about his wedding day and offering genuine sympathy for what was clearly going to be an awkward diplomatic situation. "Maybe she's bringing her whole family to meet you," suggested Torres from engineering. "Better polish your dress uniform." "Maybe she's coming to tell you that you accidentally insulted her entire species," offered Kim from navigation. "Better polish your resume." Marcus tried to laugh along with the jokes, but his sleep was fitful and full of dreams about crystalline ships and musical voices speaking words he couldn't understand. When the Zephyrian vessel finally appeared on their sensors, it was different from the one that had visited before. This ship was smaller, more personal somehow, with flowing lines that suggested it had been grown rather than built. It approached the station with the smooth grace of a dancer, executing maneuvers that would have been impossible for any human-built craft. Marcus stood in the docking bay with Captain Rodriguez and a small honor guard, trying to look professional despite the fact that his hands were shaking. The airlock cycled with a soft hiss and 3 figures emerged. Sierra was in the center, but she looked different. Her pale blue skin seemed to shimmer with an inner light, and she wore robes that looked like they were woven from starlight itself. The 2 beings flanking her were taller and more imposing, with the bearing of guards or advisors. Ambassador Zira, Captain Rodriguez said formally. "Welcome back to Omega-7. We're honored by your visit." "Thank you, Captain Rodriguez," Zira replied, her musical voice unchanged. "I come on a matter of great importance to both our peoples." Her eyes found Marcus, and he felt a jolt of recognition that went deeper than memory. There was something different about her gaze now, more focused and determined. "Marcus Chen," she said, and hearing his name in her voice made his heart do strange things. "I have come to speak with you about the proposal you made during our last meeting." "Proposal?" Rodriguez looked confused. "Chen, what proposal?" Marcus felt heat rise in his cheeks. "It wasn't really a proposal, Ambassador. It was just a joke. A misunderstanding." "Was it?" Sierra stepped closer, and Marcus caught a scent like ozone and flowers. "In the 3 years since our last meeting, I have studied human culture extensively. I have learned about your humor, your customs, your concept of marriage. I have come to understand that while your words were spoken in jest, the sentiment behind them was genuine." Marcus's mouth went dry. "Ambassador, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "There has been no misunderstanding," one of her companions interjected, speaking for the first time. His voice was deeper than Zyra's, but equally musical. "I am Counselor Vex of the Zephyrian High Council. We have come to formalize the bond that was initiated between our species." "Bond?" Rodriguez looked like he was having a stroke. "What bond?" Zyra never took her eyes off Marcus. "Among my people, when one expresses willingness to join their life with another, it creates a psychic resonance. This resonance must be either fulfilled or formally dissolved, or it will continue to affect both parties indefinitely." Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. "Affect us how?" "Dreams," Zyra said simply. "Visions. A sense of incompleteness. Have you not experienced these things, Marcus Chen?" He had. For 3 years he had dreamed of her almost every night. He had felt restless, distracted, as if part of himself was missing. He had assumed it was just guilt over the diplomatic incident, but looking into her ancient eyes now, he realized it was something much more profound. "This is insane," he said weakly. "I can't marry an alien. I don't even know if it's legal." "Legality is not the concern," Counselor Vex said. "The bond exists regardless of human law. The question is whether it will be honored or broken, and if it's broken," Marcus asked, though he was afraid of the answer. "The psychic disruption could damage both parties permanently," Zyra said quietly. "It is why I have spent 3 years learning about your species." "Marcus Chen, I needed to understand what you meant when you spoke of marriage, and whether the bond you accidentally created was something you could truly accept." Captain Rodriguez cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should continue this discussion in a more private setting. Chen, my office. Now." But as they moved toward the captain's quarters, Marcus found himself walking beside Zyra, acutely aware of her presence. The air around her seemed to hum with energy, and he could feel something responding to it in his own chest, like a tuning fork finding its matching note. "Zyra," he said quietly, "I need you to understand something. When humans joke about marriage, we're not making binding agreements. We're just exploring possibilities, playing with ideas." She looked up at him with those impossibly deep eyes. "And when you explored the possibility of binding your life to mine, what did you find?" Marcus stopped walking. The question hung in the air between them, honest and direct in the way that only aliens seemed capable of being. He thought about the dreams, the restlessness, the way he had volunteered for every dangerous assignment as if he was trying to outrun something he couldn't name. "I found," he said slowly, "that it scared the hell out of me." Zyra smiled for the first time since her arrival, and Marcus realized that her smile was worth crossing galaxies to see. "Good," she said. "Fear means it matters. Now we must decide what to do about it." Captain Rodriguez's office had never felt smaller. Marcus sat across from Zyra, while the captain paced behind his desk like a caged animal. Counselor Vex stood motionless by the door, his presence filling the room with an alien weight that made the air feel thick. Let me get this straight, Rodriguez said for the third time. Chen accidentally proposed marriage to an alien diplomat through a cultural misunderstanding, and now there's some kind of psychic bond that needs to be either completed or formally dissolved? That is correct, Zira confirmed, though I would not characterize it as an accident. Marcus spoke from his heart, even if his mind did not fully understand the implications. Marcus rubbed his temples, feeling a headache building.
Zira, with all due respect, you can't just show up 3 years later and expect me to marry you because I made a stupid joke. It was not stupid, she replied calmly.
It was honest. In those moments when you spoke of finding me suitable for pair bonding, you revealed something true about yourself, something that created a resonance between our minds. Resonance, Marcus repeated. You keep using that word. What does it actually mean? Counselor Vex stepped forward. Among our people, emotional and intellectual compatibility creates measurable psychic frequencies. When two beings find themselves in harmony, their minds begin to synchronize. This is the foundation of all Zephyrian pair bonds. But I'm not Zephyrian, Marcus protested. I'm human. We don't do psychic anything. Your species is more psychically active than you realize, Vex replied. Your emotions, your instincts, your ability to form deep connections with others. All of these stem from latent psychic abilities. Most humans never develop these abilities beyond basic empathy, but the potential exists. Zira leaned forward in her chair. Marcus, in the 3 years since we met, have you experienced any unusual dreams? Moments of inexplicable emotion? A sense that something was missing from your life? Marcus wanted to lie, but looking into her eyes made deception impossible. Yes, all of it. But that doesn't mean I'm ready to marry someone I barely know. Then perhaps it is time you got to know me better. Zira said simply, I propose a trial period. Allow me to remain on your station for 1 of your months. Learn about me as I have learned about you. At the end of that time, we can make an informed decision about our bond. Rodriguez stopped pacing. Absolutely not. This is a mining station, not a honeymoon resort. We can't have an alien diplomat living here for a month. Actually, Vex interjected, Ambassador Zyra's presence here would serve multiple diplomatic purposes. The Zephyrian Confederation has been considering expanding our mining operations in this sector. Having our ambassador observe your techniques firsthand would be educational. Marcus could practically see the dollar signs forming in Rodriguez's eyes. The Zephyrians had technology that could revolutionize human mining operations, and exclusive access to their methods would make Omega-7 the most valuable station in human space. 1 month, Rodriguez said slowly. And Chen, you're responsible for her safety and comfort. Consider it a direct order. Captain, I don't think it's decided. Rodriguez cut him off. Vex, what arrangements would the ambassador require? As the two of them began discussing the logistics of Zira's extended stay, Marcus found himself staring at her in something approaching panic. A month. He was going to spend a month with an alien who claimed to be psychically bonded to him because of a joke he'd made 3 years ago. Marcus, Zyra said quietly, her voice barely audible under the diplomatic discussion, I understand your fear. This situation is unprecedented for both our species, but I have come to believe that the bond between us may be more than just personal. It may represent something important for the future of our peoples, because what do you mean? Humans and Zephyrians are more compatible than either of our species realized. Your capacity for humor, for finding joy in adversity, for forming emotional connections despite physical differences, these are rare qualities in the galaxy, and our psychic abilities, our advanced technology, our understanding of mental harmony. Perhaps together we could achieve something neither species could accomplish alone. Marcus stared at her. You're talking about more than just marriage. You're talking about some kind of alliance. I am talking about evolution, Zira said softly. The next step for both our species. But it begins with 2 individuals choosing to trust each other. Before Marcus could respond, Rodriguez and Vex finished their negotiations. Living quarters would be prepared for Zira in the diplomatic section of the station. She would observe mining operations, document human techniques, and participate in cultural exchange activities. And during the evenings, Vex added with what might have been amusement, she will spend time with Marcus Chen, learning about human courtship rituals. Courtship rituals? Marcus squeaked. Dating, Zyra explained helpfully. I believe that is the human term. We will engage in social activities designed to determine our compatibility. As the meeting broke up and arrangements were made, Marcus found himself walking with Zyra toward the station's residential sections. The corridors seemed different with her beside him, as if her presence was changing the very quality of the air. "Zyra," he said as they reached the diplomatic quarters, "I have to ask. What happens if, at the end of this month, we decide that we're not compatible? What happens to this psychic bond thing?" She paused at the door to her new quarters, her hand resting on the control panel. "I do not know," she admitted. "This situation is unprecedented in our history. No Zephyrian has ever formed a bond with a human before. That's not exactly reassuring." "No," she agreed. "But consider this, Marcus Chen. You have spent 3 years dreaming of someone you met for a few hours. Despite the distance between our worlds, despite the impossibility of the situation, some part of you has been calling out to me all this time, and some part of me has been answering." She activated the door controls, and the entrance slid open to reveal a simply furnished but comfortable room. "Perhaps what we need to discover is not whether we are compatible, but whether we are brave enough to find out what we could become together." As she disappeared into her quarters, Marcus stood in the empty corridor, feeling as if the universe had just shifted around him. Somewhere in the distance he could hear his crewmates laughing about something, the familiar sounds of the station continuing its daily routine. But nothing would ever be routine again. In 1 month he would have to make a decision that could change not just his life, but potentially the future of 2 species. He just hoped he would know the right choice when the time came. The first night of Zira's stay, Marcus lay in his bunk staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. For the first time in 3 years, his dreams were quiet. The restless yearning that had haunted his nights was gone, replaced by something else entirely. A sense of possibility that terrified him more than any asteroid storm he'd ever faced. The first week of Zira's stay passed in a blur of awkward encounters and unexpected discoveries. Marcus found himself assigned as her official liaison, which meant he spent most of his time explaining human customs while trying not to think about the implications of their supposed psychic bond. Zyra approached everything with scientific curiosity. She observed the mining crews with fascination, taking detailed notes on their techniques and asking questions that revealed just how advanced her own people's technology really was. "Your species accomplishes through determination and ingenuity what we would solve with mental projection and matter manipulation," she observed as they watched, a crew setting charges for a controlled blast. "It is impressive." "Impressive might not be the word I'd use," Marcus replied, ducking as debris rattled against the observation window. "Dangerous, expensive, and prone to catastrophic failure would be more accurate. Yet you persist. You find ways to succeed despite the limitations of your technology. This adaptability is remarkable." Marcus was beginning to understand that when Zyra said remarkable, she meant it as high praise. Her people seemed to value mental elegance over physical effort, efficiency over persistence. The fact that humans could accomplish anything at all without psychic abilities apparently amazed her. The crew, meanwhile, was having the time of their lives with the situation. They treated Zyra like an exotic celebrity, competing to show off their skills and explain their techniques. She listened to every explanation with genuine interest, which only encouraged them more. "Hey Marcus," Torres called out during a lunch break. "Your girlfriend wants to know why we name our drilling equipment." "She's not my girlfriend," Marcus protested automatically, then caught Zyra's amused expression. "And we name them because they're partners. When you're trusting a machine to keep you alive in vacuum, it helps to think of it as having personality. Your species forms emotional attachments to inanimate objects," Zyra noted. "This suggests a capacity for bonding that transcends biological necessity." "Great," Marcus muttered. "Add that to your research notes." But despite his embarrassment, Marcus found himself genuinely enjoying Zyra's company. She was curious about everything, from the way humans told jokes to the photographs they kept in their quarters. Her questions were never judgmental, always seeking to understand rather than criticize. "Marcus," she said one evening as they shared dinner in the mess hall, "may I ask about your family? You carry no photographs of mate or offspring." "I'm not married," Marcus replied, then realized how that sounded given their situation. "I mean to humans." "I've never been married to humans." Zyra's eyes sparkled with what he was learning to recognize as her version of amusement. I see, and why is that? You appear to be within optimal pairing age for your species. Marcus pushed food around his plate, suddenly self-conscious. Just never found the right person, I guess. This job doesn't exactly offer a lot of social opportunities. Most of my relationships ended when they realized I spend more time in space than on Earth. You chose this isolation? I chose the work. The isolation came with it. Marcus looked up at her. What about you? Do Zephyrians have families in the way humans do? We form bonding groups based on psychic compatibility, Syra explained. These groups can include anywhere from 2 to 12 individuals, depending on the harmony of their mental resonances. I have been part of several such groups but never formed a primary pair bond. Why not? I never found the right resonance. She met his eyes across the table. Until now. The directness of her statement caught Marcus off guard. He was beginning to realize that Zephyrians didn't engage in the subtle dance of romantic implication that humans used. They stated their feelings as simple facts. Zira, he said carefully, how can you be sure about this bond thing? How do you know it's real and not just, I don't know, wishful thinking? Instead of answering immediately, she reached across the table and placed her hand over his. The moment their skin touched, Marcus felt something like an electric shock, but warm and welcoming instead of painful. Images flashed through his mind, emotions that weren't quite his own. He saw himself through her eyes, the way his face lit up when he laughed, the careful gentleness in his hands when he worked with delicate equipment. He felt her fascination with human resilience, her admiration for the way he found humor in dangerous situations, and underneath it all, a deep current of affection that made his breath catch. The connection lasted only a moment before Zyra pulled her hand back, but Marcus felt shaken to his core. That, she said simply, is how I know. Over the following days, Marcus found himself paying attention to things he'd never noticed before. The way Zyra's skin seemed to glow when she was excited about something. The musical quality of her laugh when she finally understood a particularly convoluted human joke. The graceful efficiency of her movements as if she was always dancing to music only she could hear. He also began to notice the way the crew responded to her. They were protective of her in a way that went beyond simple hospitality. She had become, without any apparent effort, part of their strange family. She's good for you, Kim observed one day as they watched Zira discussing mineral extraction techniques with the geology team. I haven't seen you this relaxed in years. It's complicated, Marcus replied. Good relationships usually are, Kim said with a shrug. The question is whether it's the good kind of complicated or the run-for-your-life kind. Marcus was beginning to think it might be both. The second week brought an unexpected challenge. A solar storm disrupted communications with Earth and damaged several critical systems. It was the kind of emergency that required all hands working around the clock to prevent catastrophic failure. Zira insisted on helping, despite protocols that should have kept her in the safe areas of the station. Marcus found himself working beside her to repair damaged conduits in one of the outer sections, both of them squeezed into a maintenance shaft barely large enough for one human. Pass me the plasma cutter, Marcus said, sweat dripping into his eyes as he worked on a fused coupling. The efficiency of this process could be improved significantly with proper mental coordination, Zira observed, handing him the tool. Well, we work with what we've got, Marcus replied, applying the cutter to the damaged metal. Sometimes brute force and stubbornness are all we need. May I try something? Zira asked. If you are willing to trust me. Marcus paused in his work. What kind of something? Allow me to create a temporary resonance between us. It will not be permanent, but it may help us work more efficiently together. The idea should have terrified him, but looking into her eyes in the cramped space, Marcus found himself nodding. Okay. But if this goes wrong and I end up speaking in musical tones, I'm blaming you. Zira smiled and placed her hands on either side of his face. This time the connection was deeper, more complete. Marcus felt his awareness expand to include her perspective, her knowledge, her calm certainty in the face of crisis. Working together became effortless. He knew what she needed before she asked, anticipated her movements, felt her understanding of the station's systems merge with his own practical experience. They repaired the conduits in half the time it should have taken, moving with a synchronization that seemed impossible. When they finally emerged from the maintenance shaft, both of them were quiet. The temporary bond had faded, but the memory of it lingered like the echo of beautiful music. That was, Marcus began, then realized he didn't have words for what it had been. A preview, Zyra said softly, of what we could be together if you choose to accept the bond. Marcus looked at her, this small blue woman who had turned his life upside down with her honesty and her impossible offer. 2 weeks ago, the idea of marrying an alien had seemed insane. Now the idea of letting her go seemed equally impossible. Sierra, he said, I think I'm starting to understand why your people believe in psychic bonds. And I am beginning to understand why humans find love so frightening, she replied. It requires a courage that even I had not fully appreciated. As they walked back through the station corridors, Marcus realized that something fundamental had changed. The question was no longer whether he could accept a bond with Zira. The question was whether he was brave enough to try. The third week brought visitors that no one had expected. Marcus was in the middle of explaining human dating customs to Zira when alarms started blaring throughout the station. Emergency lights bathed the corridors in red as Captain Rodriguez's voice echoed over the intercom. All hands to stations. Unknown vessels approaching. This is not a drill. Marcus and Zira hurried to the command center, where the main display showed 3 ships unlike anything in human or Zephyrian design. They were angular and aggressive-looking, with weapon signatures that made the station's defenses look like toys. Who are they? Rodriguez demanded as his crew scrambled to their positions. Counselor Vex, who had remained aboard as Zira's advisor, studied the sensor readings with growing alarm. Hegemony ships, he said grimly. The Krill hegemony. They are aggressive expansionist. What do they want? Marcus asked. Probably to claim the system for themselves, Vex replied. The Krill do not negotiate. They take what they want and eliminate anyone who opposes them. On the display, the lead ship was broadcasting something in a harsh, guttural language that the universal translators struggled to process. When the message finally came through, it was brief and terrifying. Unidentified vessels. You are trespassing in hegemony space. Prepare to be boarded or be destroyed. Hegemony space? Rodriguez exploded. This system isn't claimed by anyone. It is now, Vex said quietly. The Krill operate on the principle that any territory they can take becomes theirs by right of conquest. Marcus felt Zira tense beside him. Through their growing connection, he could sense her fear, not for herself but for the humans who had welcomed her. The Krill ships were moving into attack formation, their weapons powering up. Captain, Marcus said urgently, our weapons can't scratch those ships. If they want to board us, they will. Like hell, Rodriguez snarled. All hands prepare for combat. Seal the airlocks and— Wait, Zyra interrupted, stepping forward. There may be another option. Every eye in the command center turned to her. In the red light of the emergency alerts, her blue skin seemed to glow with an inner fire. The Krill respect strength above all else, she explained quickly. If they perceive weakness, they will attack without mercy. But if they encounter unexpected resistance, they may be willing to negotiate. We don't have the firepower to resist them, Rodriguez pointed out. No, Zyra agreed, but you have something they have never encountered before. You have humans. She turned to Marcus, her eyes bright with sudden inspiration. Marcus, what you said about human adaptability, about finding ways to succeed despite limitations, it gave me an idea. The Krill expect their enemies to fight using conventional weapons and tactics. They have never faced an enemy that uses humor as a weapon. Humor? Marcus stared at her. You want us to joke at them? I want you to confuse them, Zyra said intently. Humans excel at psychological warfare without even realizing it. Your ability to find absurdity in desperate situations, to make light of mortal danger, it is deeply unsettling to species that take themselves seriously. Vex was nodding slowly. The Krill pride themselves on inspiring fear. They have never encountered beings who respond to threats with laughter. This is insane, Rodriguez muttered, but Marcus could see him considering it. What exactly are you proposing? Let me open a channel to their lead ship, Zyra said. Marcus will respond to their threats in the most human way possible. Be yourself, Marcus. Be irreverent, casual, completely unconcerned by their show of force. And if it doesn't work, then we fight, Zyra said simply. But at least we will have tried something they have never seen before. The Krill were hailing again, their message even more threatening than before. Rodriguez looked around the command center at his crew, then at Marcus. Do it, he decided. Open the channel. The main screen flickered and resolved into the image of something out of humanity's worst nightmares. The Krill commander was reptilian but wrong somehow, with too many teeth and eyes that burned with predatory hunger. When it spoke, its voice was like grinding metal. I am War Leader Krex of the Hegemony 7th Fleet. You will surrender your vessels and submit to processing or you will be destroyed. You have 60 seconds to comply. Marcus stepped forward, feeling every eye on him. Through his connection with Zira, he could sense her confidence in him. Her belief that human nature might be the key to their survival. Hey there, Krex, Marcus said conversationally as if he was greeting a neighbor. Nice ships you've got there, very pointy. Really gets the whole fear me vibe across. I'm Marcus, by the way. Welcome to our little corner of nowhere. The Krill commander's eyes narrowed. Clearly, this was not the response he had expected. You dare mock the might of the hegemony? Krex snarled. Mock? Marcus looked genuinely confused. Oh no, I'm not mocking anything. I'm just wondering if you guys always open conversations with threats of destruction, or if that's just your way of saying hello. Because honestly, where I come from, we usually start with nice weather we're having, or how about those sports teams? The command center was dead silent except for the hum of electronics. Marcus could feel his crew's terror and Zira's fascination in equal measure. Krex seemed to be struggling to process what he was hearing. You are not afraid, the war leader said, confusion evident in his voice. Afraid? Marcus considered this seriously. Well, sure, a little. I mean, you could blow us all to bits without breaking a sweat. But honestly, I was more afraid of my first date with Zira here than I am of you guys. He gestured to Zira, who managed to look appropriately dating-related despite the circumstances. You threaten my warriors with romantic anxiety? Krex seemed completely lost now. Oh, you have no idea, Marcus said earnestly. Dating an alien? That's terrifying. I mean, what if I say something culturally insensitive? What if I accidentally propose marriage again? What if her people have some weird courtship ritual that involves ritual combat or public embarrassment? Compared to figuring out interspecies relationships, getting blown up by space pirates is almost relaxing. Space pirates? Krex's voice rose dangerously. The Krill hegemony are not pirates. We are the inheritors of 1,000 conquered worlds. Oh, sorry, Marcus said apologetically. Space conquistadors? Galactic real estate developers? I'm still learning the proper terminology for people who show up with big ships and tell other people to move. Through the connection he shared with Zira, Marcus could feel something happening. The Krill war leader was off balance, confused, uncertain how to respond to an enemy who treated mortal threats as minor inconveniences. Your species is defective, Krex finally managed. You do not respond appropriately to displays of superior force. Well, sure, Marcus agreed cheerfully. We're probably the most inappropriately responsive species in the galaxy. Last week we had an asteroid nearly take out our main reactor. And instead of panicking, Torres over there started taking bets on which section would decompress first. Humans are weird that way. Torres, catching on to what Marcus was doing, raised his hand and waved cheerfully at the screen. Still think Section C was the smart money, he called out. Other crew members began to relax, understanding that Marcus was somehow turning their greatest weakness into a strength. They started making casual comments to each other, treating the deadly serious Krill commander like background entertainment. Your warriors mock death itself, Krex said, and for the first time, there was something other than arrogance in his voice, something that might have been unease. Death? Marcus looked around at his crew. Now we're not mocking death. We just figure if we're going to die, we might as well have fun with it. I mean, what's the alternative? Crying about it? Begging for mercy? Where's the entertainment value in that? Entertainment value, Krex repeated slowly. Sure. I mean, if you're going to conquer us, at least make it interesting. Most species just surrender or fight desperately. But humans? We'll probably find a way to make jokes while you're processing us. Might even critique your technique. You know, for a galactic conquest, this is pretty standard. The Zephyrians had much better presentation when they showed up. Zira managed to look simultaneously offended and amused by this comparison. The silence from the Krill ships stretched on. Marcus could see that other Krill had crowded around their commander, all of them staring at the humans with expressions of complete bewilderment. Finally, Krex spoke again, his voice uncertain. What? What are you? We're humans, Marcus said simply. We're a species that finds the universe so fundamentally ridiculous that we can't help but laugh at it. Including the parts that are trying to kill us. This is not how conquests proceed, Krex muttered, looking to his subordinates for guidance. Well, Marcus said helpfully, you could always try asking nicely. Please submit to conquest has a much friendlier ring to it than surrender or die. Just a suggestion. What happened next would become legend throughout both human and Krill space. War Leader Krex of the Hegemony 7th Fleet, conqueror of a dozen worlds, looked directly into the camera and asked very politely, Would you please consider submitting to conquest? The entire command center burst into laughter. The laughter that erupted from the human crew seemed to short-circuit something fundamental in Krill psychology. War Leader Krex stared at the screen in complete bewilderment as Marcus wiped tears from his eyes. Oh man, Marcus gasped between chuckles. That was perfect. Absolutely perfect delivery. You should consider a career in comedy if the whole galactic conquest thing doesn't work out. What is happening? Krex looked around at his own crew, who seemed equally confused by the humans' reaction. You're being inducted into the grand tradition of human humor, Marcus explained, still grinning. Congratulations, you just made your first joke. Sure, it was accidental, but we'll count it. Zyra stepped up beside Marcus, her hand finding his arm. Through their connection, he could feel her amazement at what was happening. The most feared military force in this sector of the galaxy had just been psychologically disarmed by human laughter. War Leader Krex, Zyra said formally, I am Ambassador Zyra of the Zephyrian Confederation. I believe what you are experiencing is called cultural shock. Your species has never encountered beings who respond to threats with amusement. This is not how conquests work, Krex said weakly. Well, that's your first problem right there, Torres called out from his station. You're thinking about this all wrong. You don't conquer humans.
You recruit us. Recruit?
Krex seized on this word like a lifeline. Sure, Marcus said enthusiastically. I mean, think about it. You guys have been conquering worlds for how long? And it's always the same thing, right? Show up with big ships, threaten people, fight whoever resists, process the survivors. Boring. The hegemony way is efficient, Krex protested, but his heart clearly wasn't in it. Efficient maybe, but where's the fun? Where's the challenge? Marcus spread his hands. Look at us. We're a mining station crew who just convinced a galactic conqueror to ask politely. We're completely outgunned, completely outmatched, and we're still having a good time. Doesn't that seem like something you'd want on your side? Captain Rodriguez caught on to what Marcus was doing and stepped forward. What my engineer is suggesting, War Leader, is a partnership rather than a conquest. You get human adaptability and problem-solving skills. We get protection and access to advanced technology. Everybody wins. Through the view screen, they could see Krex conferring with his subordinates in rapid, snarling speech. The discussion seemed heated, with several Krill gesturing emphatically at the screen showing the humans. He's actually considering it, Vex whispered in amazement. Marcus, what you've done here may have just prevented a war. I hope so, Marcus replied, then louder, addressing the screen. Hey, Krex, while you're discussing terms, want to see something really impressive? Kim, show them the asteroid ballet. Kim grinned and activated the mining sensors, displaying a real-time view of the local asteroid field. With quick, expert movements, she began maneuvering several automated mining drones through the floating rocks in a complex pattern that looked almost like a dance. This is how humans mine asteroids, Marcus explained as they watched the drones weave between massive chunks of rock with impossible precision. No psychic powers, no advanced matter manipulation. Just skill, timing, and the kind of reckless creativity that makes other species nervous. The Krill crew was clearly fascinated despite themselves. One of them said something that the translator rendered as, "They make their machines dance with death rocks for entertainment?" Not just entertainment, Rodriguez corrected. We make it look fun because work should be enjoyable. Life's too short to spend it being miserable even when you're doing dangerous things. Life is short? Krex seemed confused by this concept. Well, yeah, Marcus said. Humans live maybe 80 or 90 years if we're lucky. So we figure we might as well enjoy ourselves while we're here. No point in being serious all the time when the universe is fundamentally ridiculous anyway. Zyra squeezed his arm, and through their bond, he felt her sending him strength and encouragement. Whatever happened next, they would face it together. The discussion on the Krill ship continued for several more minutes before Krex returned to the screen. His expression was unreadable, but something had changed in his demeanor. Human Marcus, he said formally. My advisors believe that your species may indeed possess strategic value beyond conventional conquest parameters. We are curious about these partnership arrangements you mention. Great, Marcus said. First rule of partnership: partners don't threaten to destroy each other. How about powering down those weapons as a gesture of good faith? There was a long pause. Then the threat indicators on the station's sensors began to fade as the krill ships powered down their weapons arrays. Excellent, Rodriguez said with visible relief. Now let's talk about what each side brings to the table. What followed was the strangest diplomatic negotiation in recorded history. The krill, it turned out, were excellent at conquest but terrible at actually governing the territories they conquered. They needed administrators, engineers, and problem solvers who could adapt to different environments and situations. Humans excel at making impossible things work, Marcus explained. We're really good at taking broken systems and fixing them with whatever we have on hand. Plus, we're entertaining, which has to count for something. You would help us manage conquered territories? Krex asked. We'd help you manage territories, period, Torres corrected. Maybe some of them don't need to be conquered. Maybe some of them would join willingly if you offered them something better than threats. The concept seemed to blow Krex's mind. Voluntary compliance? It's a thing, Kim assured him. Crazy idea, I know, but it works sometimes. As the negotiations continued, Marcus found himself standing closer to Zira, their hands intertwined. Through their connection, he could feel her pride in what humanity had accomplished here, her amazement at the way humans had turned a potential massacre into a diplomatic opportunity. Your species continues to surprise me, she murmured quietly. Good surprises, I hope. The best kind, she confirmed. Marcus, what you did here today, you may have just changed the balance of power in this entire sector of the galaxy. All I did was be myself, Marcus replied. Apparently that's enough. For the krill, yes. But what about for me? Zira looked up at him with those ancient eyes. Marcus, our month is almost over. I need to know. Have you decided about our bond? Marcus looked around at the command center where humans and aliens were working together to draft the framework for an unprecedented alliance. He thought about everything that had happened since Zira's arrival, the way she had fit seamlessly into their lives, the way his dreams had been peaceful since she came. I have, he said quietly, but not here. This moment belongs to something bigger than just us. As if summoned by his words, War Leader Krex's voice boomed across the command center. Humans of Mining Station Omega-7, he announced formally. The krill hegemony formally requests alliance with your species. We offer protection, technology, and access to conquered territories in exchange for your expertise in making things work that should not work. The cheer that went up from the human crew was deafening. Even Vex seemed pleased, though he maintained his diplomatic composure. This is acceptable to the Zephyrian Confederation as well, he announced. A three-way alliance between humans, Zephyrians, and krill could bring stability to this entire region. As the celebrations continued around them, Marcus led Zira away from the crowd, toward the observation deck where they had shared their first meal together. The stars looked different now, full of possibilities that hadn't existed an hour ago. Zira, he said, taking her hands in his, I've made my decision about our bond. She waited, her expression calm but her eyes showing the depth of her hope and fear. Yes, Marcus said simply. Yes to all of it. The bond, the marriage, the future we could build together. Yes to being brave enough to try. The joy that blazed across her features was like sunrise after a long night. She reached up to cup his face in her hands, and this time when their minds touched, Marcus didn't resist the connection. He opened himself to it completely, feeling their thoughts and emotions merge into something greater than either could achieve alone. In that moment, as their bond solidified into something permanent and wonderful, Marcus realized that his casual joke 3 years ago had set in motion events that would reshape the galaxy. And it had all started with a human being too stubborn to take anything entirely seriously, even marriage proposals to alien ambassadors. Some things, Marcus thought as he kissed his alien fiancée, while 3 different species celebrated alliance in the background, were too important to treat seriously, which, as any human could tell you, was exactly when you needed humor the most. 1 year later, Marcus Chen stood in what had once been the cargo bay of Mining Station Omega-7. now transformed into something unprecedented in galactic history. The first interspecies wedding venue. The station itself had changed dramatically. What started as a simple mining operation had become the unofficial capital of the human-Zephyrian Krill alliance. Ships from all three species docked regularly, bringing diplomats, traders, and curious observers who wanted to see the place where laughter had prevented a war. "Stop fidgeting," Torres commanded, adjusting Marcus's formal uniform for the third time. "You look fine. Well, as fine as someone marrying an alien can look." "Thanks for the pep talk," Marcus replied, but he was grinning. The nervousness he felt wasn't about marrying Zira. It was about doing it in front of representatives from 3 different species, half the human diplomatic corps, and what seemed like every journalist in known space. Captain Rodriguez approached, looking uncomfortable in his dress uniform. "Chen, the Zephyrian delegation is asking about some ritual called the Joining of Lights. Apparently it's traditional for the bride's family to perform it." "Already handled," Marcus assured him. "Zyra explained it to me weeks ago. It's basically their version of giving the bride away, except instead of a father walking her down the aisle, her entire family creates a psychic light show to celebrate the bond, and the Krill wanted to know if they should bring weapons for their part of the ceremony." Marcus laughed. "Tell War Leader Krex that while we appreciate the offer, human weddings are generally weapon-free events. Though knowing Krex, he'll probably find a way to make even congratulations sound like a threat." As if summoned by his name, Krex's distinctive growl echoed through the cargo bay. The massive Krill commander was directing his warriors and hanging what looked like battle banners around the makeshift altar. His idea of wedding decorations. "Human Marcus," Krex called out, his voice carrying clearly across the space. "These flower arrangements are insufficient for proper ceremony. Where are the trophy skulls? The weapons of conquered enemies?" "It's a wedding, not a victory celebration," Marcus called back. "Are they not the same thing?" Krex seemed genuinely confused. The question sparked a philosophical debate among the Krill delegation that Marcus decided not to get involved in. He had learned that Krill conversations about the nature of victory could last for hours, and usually ended with someone challenging someone else to ritual combat. Instead, he made his way to the observation deck where he and Zira had shared so many conversations over the past year. She was there waiting for him, wearing robes that seemed to be made of captured starlight, her blue skin glowing with excitement. "Having second thoughts?" she asked with a smile that told him she already knew the answer through their bond. "Third and fourth thoughts," Marcus admitted, "but they all lead to the same conclusion." Over the past year, their relationship had deepened beyond anything Marcus had thought possible. The psychic bond allowed them to share thoughts and emotions in ways that made traditional communication seem clumsy by comparison. They could work together with perfect synchronization, finishing each other's sentences and anticipating each other's needs. But more than that, they had discovered that their differences made them stronger. Zira's calm logic balanced Marcus's intuitive leaps while his humor helped her see the absurdity that made life bearable. Together, they had become something neither could have been alone. "The human delegation wants to know if we're planning to have children," Zira said, settling into their usual spot by the window. "Apparently, the scientific implications of human Zephyrian hybrid offspring are causing quite a stir in your academic communities." "What did you tell them?" "That we would cross that bridge when we came to it. Though I must admit I am curious about what our children would be like." Marcus considered this. The possibility of children had been theoretical until recently, when Zephyrian medical technology had advanced enough to make it feasible. The idea of little blue humans or pink Zephyrians running around was both exciting and terrifying. "They'd probably be even more impossible than their parents," he said finally. "Little psychic comedians who could make anyone laugh while simultaneously reading their minds." "The galaxy would never recover," Zira agreed solemnly. A chime from the station's communication system interrupted their conversation. "All wedding participants to your positions. The ceremony will begin in 10 minutes. Marcus felt his heart rate spike, but Zyra's hand found his and her calm flowed through their bond, steadying him. "Ready?" she asked. "Ready," he confirmed. The ceremony itself was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human traditions blended with Zephyrian light-weaving and Krill victory, chance in a celebration that should have been chaotic but somehow worked perfectly. Marcus stood at the altar wearing a formal human uniform modified with Zephyrian energy patterns, and a krill honor cord that Krex had insisted was necessary for proper warrior bonding. Zira approached through a corridor of light, created by her family's combined psychic abilities, while the krill delegation provided what they called ceremonial battle hymns that sounded like a cross between wedding music and a declaration of war. The officiant was Captain Rodriguez, who had been hastily ordained for the occasion and looked like he was trying not to laugh at the absurdity of it all. "We are gathered here today," Rodriguez began, his voice carrying over the combined sounds of Zephyrian harmonic tones and krill war chants, to witness something that probably shouldn't work but absolutely does. The union of two beings from different worlds, different species, different ways of understanding the universe. Zira took her place beside Marcus, and immediately their bond strengthened, their minds touching in the way that had become as natural as breathing. "Marcus Chen," Rodriguez continued, "do you take Zira as your wife, your partner, your psychic bonded mate, and probably the only being in the galaxy crazy enough to put up with your terrible jokes?" "I do," Marcus said, and meant it more than he had ever meant anything in his life. "Zira of the Zephyrian Confederation, do you take Marcus as your husband, your partner, your psychic bonded mate, and the human who somehow convinced the krill to ask politely before conquering people?" "I do," Zira replied, her voice musical with happiness. "Then by the power vested in me by the Earth Central Authority, the Zephyrian High Council, and what I'm pretty sure is a krill blessing that roughly translates to, 'May your enemies flee before you,' I pronounce you married. Marcus, you may kiss your alien wife." The kiss that followed was witnessed by 3 species and broadcast across known space. In that moment, as their minds merged completely and their bond solidified into something eternal, Marcus felt the future spreading out before them like an endless field of stars. The celebration that followed lasted 3 days and became legendary throughout the galaxy. Humans danced with Zephyrians while krill warriors composed epic poems about the union that had forged an alliance. Trade agreements were signed. Cultural exchanges were planned, and at least 12 different species requested diplomatic contact with the Alliance of Laughter. But Marcus's favorite moment came near the end, when he found himself alone with Zira on the observation deck, watching the ships of their 3 peoples moving through space in perfect harmony. "Any regrets?" Zira asked, settling into his arms. "Just one," Marcus said seriously. "What?" "I should have made better jokes during first contact. If I'd known where this was all leading, I would have worked on my material." Zira's laughter rang out across the observation deck, bright and joyful and full of promise for all the years to come. "Marcus Chen," she said, "you are impossible." "Yeah," he agreed happily, "but I'm your impossible now." Outside the window, the stars wheeled in their ancient patterns, but everything had changed. Somewhere in the galaxy, humans were teaching krill about the strategic value of humor. Zephyrian philosophers were studying human concepts of absurdity. New alliances were forming, new friendships were blooming, new possibilities were being born. All because a human had made a joke about marrying an alien, and an alien had taken him seriously. Marcus pulled his wife closer and watched the universe spin around them, full of laughter and light and the endless possibility of what they could build together. It was, he thought, the best joke he had ever told, even if the punchline had taken 3 years and a galactic alliance to fully deliver. But then again, the best jokes were always worth the wait.